Hi, and welcome to another one of my guitar lessons here on YouTube. I've had some requests for some beginning lessons on how to play both monotonic bass and the alternating bass when you're trying to play country blues music from the 1920s and 30s. And so in this lesson I'm going to just demonstrate the simple idea of the monotonic bass and give you some ways to practice with some different in different keys, different chords, and hopefully this will help you get started with this really fun style of music. First of all, monotonic bass simply means that as you're playing the treble parts on the guitar, you are literally thumping on one bass string, and monotonic. And the easiest way to get started is just play in the key of E, which I think is one of the easiest keys to play this in. First of all, with my left hand, I'm going to be making an E chord. This is what I call a Lightning Hopkins or a Mance Lipscomb E chord. I've got my first finger on the first fret of the third string. My second finger is getting both the fourth and fifth strings at the second fret. And that frees up my ring finger and my pinky to do some things. Now the bass, if you're playing in E, is just thumping on the open sixth string. Now to control that, what I do is use my right hand palm and just rest it very lightly on the sixth string down by the bridge of the guitar. And you can adjust the pressure that you put on the string with your hand to get a different kind of sound. The kind of picks you use, if you're playing bare-fingered, that'll get a certain kind of sound. I'm using a plastic thumb pick, which is comfortable for me, which I'll use. And you're just thumping that bass. And the trick is to be able to do it without really thinking about it. And so one simple way to practice if you're getting started in the key of E is just make your chord, but just thump on the bass and try to get it to sound the way you want to. Good idea is to do that while you're watching TV or doing something else. That way you're multitasking. And you're maybe looking at the TV screen watching a football game or something, and then thumping on the bass so you can get to the point where you don't have to think about it. In different keys, the bass changes. So if we go, let's just use a 3-chord progression in E. We go to an A chord. Now we're thumping on the open fifth string, which is an A string. And again, we are muting the fifth string with our palm. Right hand palm, and do the same thing. And then if we go to the 5 chord, which is a B 7th, there's our B 7th chord, our bass note becomes the B, which is on the 2nd fret, 5th string. So just thump on that. Now to make things more interesting, once you feel comfortable doing that, you can start trying to throw in some treble lines. And an easy way to get started is just try to play a chord, the treble notes on the chord. So if you're playing in E, you've got your open first or top 3 strings that you can play the open first and second string, plus the third string. And then you can thump the bass. Just try to get a rhythm or a melody almost going with your right hand. And with the right hand, I'm using my first finger only. You can use more than one finger, but to get started, it's really good to try to learn to do it just with the thumb and the first finger. That's what a lot of the old-timey guys did. You could try an E 7th chord. And see if you can keep the bass going and pick out the melody. And you could do something where you do the same thing and try to play some licks. Like in the key of E, here's a common country blues lick where you slide a finger on the, actually I use my ring finger going from the 3rd fret to the 5th fret of the 2nd string and keeping the first string open. That's a Lightning Hopkins type thing. So I can practice my monotonic bass doing something like this. E7, going back and forth between the lick and the chord. Another lick you could play, go a little further up on the neck. Up here I've got my first finger on the 7th fret of the 1st string, my second finger on the 8th fret of the 2nd string. This is a typical Lightning Hopkins type lick. So you start out maybe with the E7th chord, get the bass going. Just be creative, try to think of different ways to combine those couple licks with the E7th chord, or sometimes an open E. Another thing you can try to do with the E, playing out of the key of E, is work on some single string runs. And you've got your basic blues box up here, or down here, for the key of E. So you could try something like this with single strings. Just try to invent a melody, be creative, and try to think of different ways you can play that. So that's in the key of E, and that's a good way to just get yourself, train yourself to be able to play that bass continuously, no matter what you're doing on the treble strings. Now in the key of A, a good way to practice that is to use the A7th and the long A chords. So here's my A, I'm just using my first finger to bar the 2nd fret, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th strings. And then on A7th, I'm putting my ring finger on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. Again, trying to make a melody with the chord. The long A, we drop our pinky down. Kind of a tough chord if you have smaller hands or just starting to play, but this is one you use all the time. Your pinky is on the 5th fret of the 1st string. And a lot of times you'll alternate the pinky on the 1st string, 5th fret, with the ring finger on the 3rd fret, 1st string. That's your A7. So you'll be going back and forth between a long A and an A7. Something like this. Johnson type thing, bouncing back and forth with different rhythms there. Now something else you can throw in, as long as you're working on the bass, is when you play an A, Mance Lipscomb does this a lot, is do a little stumble from the E, open E to the open A to lead in to playing the A chord. So something like this. That's something that's really good to practice. That's a little more advanced, but once you feel comfortable just thumping the open A string while you're playing the A chord, why not mess around with that? It gives you a little variety. Now the B7, if you go to a B chord, you can do that in a couple different ways. One way is you can just play the B7 shape. A lot of times in country blues, when they play a B7th with the monotonic bass, he's not going to get the high E string. He's going to play mostly the 2nd, 3rd, 4th strings. Or even, it sounds sometimes like just the 4th, 5th, 3rd, 4th, and 5th strings. So pretty much any chord you can play in. Now some other chords that you hear monotonic bass with a lot, G. So you're playing in the key of G. Big Bill Brunsey and Robert Johnson both do numbers with monotonic bass in G. So a Big Bill Brunsey type thing. And when I'm playing in G, I've got my G chord shape. My ring finger is on the G, 3rd fret, 6th string. And my second finger is on the 2nd fret of the 5th string. And then my my first finger, just bouncing back and forth with my first finger on the first fret of the first string and my ring finger on the third fret. Actually, my pinky on the third fret of the first string. Another thing you hear sometimes, Robert Johnson does a song called Love in Vain with a monotonic bass where he's playing. And that chord is still a G, but this time I've got my pinky on the second string at the third fret. Still beating on the sixth string, which is fretted at the third fret. And then my first finger is going lifting on and off on the first fret of the first string. That's another way you can practice getting the monotonic bass in G. Key of C, if you're going to play a monotonic bass, sometimes like in Robert Johnson stuff, he is hitting the fifth fret of the third fret of the fifth string, which is a C, and again, same idea. There's a Blind Lemon Jefferson song called Hot Dogs where he plays a riff similar to that, a little faster pace. So that would be a lick you can practice. All I'm doing is out of my C shape, I'm putting my pinky on the third fret of the first string. Put it on, taking it off, putting it on as I hammer on the bass note. So that's something else you can do. Key of D, a lot of times when you're playing a D7th up here, your bass is really your fourth string. So you're going, the D would be the 5 chord, and the G, if your 1 chord is a G. So you can work on that. Or if you're tuned to drop D, where you drop your 6th string from an E to a D, then you could just hit that string open. So it depends, if you're in standard tuning, I'm showing you the bass notes, but if you can in open tuning, or drop D tuning, or G tuning like Lonnie Johnson used, then your bass notes can change. Oh, some other stuff. I'm trying to think, I forgot some of the chords. If you're playing an F, so if you're doing a 3-chord progression in C, where you're going C, F, G, then the F, this one's a little harder. You got to make your F chord, and then take your thumb and wrap it around to the first fret of the 6th string. Big Bill Brunzi, a lot of times in his songs, he'll be in C, then go to F, and then eventually to G, but that's... that, and that really takes some effort to get that thumb to be able to wrap around and catch the bass. It doesn't have to get it cleanly, as long as it gets it pretty good, and then you mute it with your right hand, you'll get a nice percussive sound there. So to practice that, what I'm doing is just using my pinky and going on and off on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. This is a typical Big Bill Brunzi type thing. Mix it up. Try to think of a melody. Try to play a melody with your first finger on the treble strings of some kind as you hammer on the bass. Once again, the easiest key to get started with this in is the key of E. Now that's just some real simple ideas for how to practice monotonic bass. My advice is listen to as many different songs as you can, get some of the old recordings, and listen to the monotonic bass. Or better yet, if you can find some videos on YouTube, watch Lightning Hopkins, Mance Lipscomb. They both use the monotonic bass a lot. Big Bill Brunzi did, but you can't find too many videos of him playing. So listen to his stuff. pretty much all the country bluesmen at one time or another used the monotonic bass in some way. Little Son Jackson has an instrumental tune called West Dallas Blues that's got a good monotonic bass. Big Bill Brunsey, The Glory of Love, is a great tune to learn the monotonic bass in the key of C. That's pretty tough, and he does a number of instrumentals in C where you have to use the C, F, and G, and sometimes the A on those songs too. If you have any questions, comments, want me to teach you some more stuff, or need some more ideas, just let me know. And I hope this video is helpful for you, and I'll see you again next time.